Hey, Matt, thanks so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have you. Your experience and your current position is one that I think the students are really going to connect with. So can you go ahead and start us out, introduce yourself, tell us about the organization you work for and your current position at that organization.
Yeah, my name is Matt Trnian. I am the director of Grand Park Sports Campus. I've had the pleasure of working at Grand Park since we opened in 2014. Kind of a unique story for myself as I take a lot of pride in this, as I started as an intern at the facility in the first summer, worked through several iterations of different management styles, different management groups, and have worked my way to where I am today and the proud director of the campus and have loved every step of the way.
That
And the
is,
camp, yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, no, all I was going to add was the campus itself is a 400-acre youth sports campus. I say youth sports, but really we cover all age ranges and talent levels. The campus opened in 2014, as mentioned. We have 60 fields on site in total, so we have 26 diamonds on the east side of the facility, primarily used for baseball and softball. We have 31 outdoor multipurpose fields, which we use for anything that you put on a rectangle, really. So soccer, lacrosse, football, ultimate. I'm sure I'm leaving out several, but we've tried it: rugby, field hockey. We even had a USA archery event out there, and then we have a 377,000 square foot indoor building with 3 full-size soccer fields under roof that we get to do anything sport related that I just listed on the outdoor services, as well as non-sporting events such as trade shows, conventions, business outings, things of that nature. And so what this all boils down to is finding a way to bring people to Westfield, and that's been the catalyst there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, we're going to get to the campus in a little bit, but can you tell us, as a director, especially those of us that don't work in the same sort of industry as you, as a director, what does your day-to-day look like at Grand Park?
Yeah, I think what I love most about the industry itself is no 2 days are the same. You're dealing with different groups coming into the facility, or you're working on different functions. And I think the freshness, the newness of that is what is so invigorating about the position. But I guess to summarize it in the best way possible, on a day to day, I lead the staff that is comprised of right now about 16 full time staff members. We boil up to about 25 to 30 with part time and seasonal workers during the summer months. And our main objective is to optimize and utilize the campus to its full potential. Like I mentioned, we have 60 surfaces, so we're trying to maximize the utilization for the campus via the different sporting activity or non-sporting activity. And so I lead the different divisions of the campus between operations, maintenance, grounds, client services, administrative, budgeting, and get to work with not only our immediate staff, but several stakeholders that help pour into the facility. We are a small but mighty team, but it takes a lot of supporting agencies to really well round out the facility. And so on a day-to-day basis, it's my responsibility to stay up with all of those different stakeholders that make the campus go, and be, I guess, for lack of a better term, the one that gets to lead it amongst several other leaders in our organization.
Yeah, cool. Before we get to the learning more about the campus and the business structure of everything that happens at Grand Park, I would love to dig deep into a little bit more about your story, because you have such a unique career trajectory, and one that I think the students that are listening or watching will really connect with. So you've mentioned that you've been at Grand Park since its inception, which was 2014. So can you tell us a little bit about how you have risen through the ranks over the years, and
Yeah.
specifically your career path and how you made each step of the way?
Yeah, I think to start, as a young boy and going through middle school, high school, I was an athlete. Now, I maybe not have been the best athlete, but I was always involved. I was a 3 sport athlete in high school, varsity, and uh, football, basketball, and baseball, and was at a school that allowed me to play in all three. Anymore, you see a lot more specialization or not that ability. Anyway, all that boils down to I had a love of sport, and when I was looking for school, at the next level, I knew that I wanted to do something in sport, and I knew there was a life after playing that still involved sport in some capacity. Decided to go to Kent State University over in Kent, Ohio, studied sports administration with a minor in business, and fell in love with the program. And as I'm sure as many students will hear, you got to get plugged in so that you can get your network built. And I did just that at Kent State. I worked within the athletic office, um, was fortunate enough to be a part of the football program during one of our most successful years in program history in 2012. And got to travel with the team and got to see again that backside of the sport. Everyone naturally sees the TV or the field product, but it's the back end stuff that I really took a liking to and really fell in love with. And then as school was getting towards its latter end, my internship was last, and I knew that I wanted to move to the Indianapolis area. I had family in this area, and I just loved this area, and so naturally you're putting feelers out to the professional sports teams, the Colts, the Pacers, the Indians, and my family had mentioned, hey, there's this new sports complex that's getting ready to be built, and you might want to look into it. And that sports campus was Grand Park, and so I put a feeler out to Grand Park and was fortunate enough to land the internship for their inaugural season. And I think just naturally, my mind always went to operations, and so got plugged in that first year, giving golf cart tours and helping visitors find their fields and working through some last end construction pieces. We opened before we were completely ready to be open, but it was imperative to get the campus open. So got to work through some of those operational pieces towards the latter end of construction and worked through that summer. Was fortunate enough to then get hired on by the then management team, the Hankey Development Group and Grand Park Sports LLC through the remainder of the 2014 season. And then in 2015, the city of Westfield took back over operation. And at that point, I was brought over to the city of Westfield as an operations assistant. And again, I think that was a title that they just gave me at the time, but it really covered everything from setting fields to aligning schedules to working with stakeholders to ensure that everyone had an awareness of what was happening on each day to day. And then doing some numbers on the back end for some reporting. And so that carried me for about 3 or 4 years. And then I received a new director in 2018. And he kind of reformed the vision for Grand Park. And with that, my job responsibilities changed a little bit, where I got to be more involved in the management of the staff on a little bit of a smaller scale, but got me that experience to be able to work with people. And at the end of the day, Grand Park is a great facility. It's naturally the capital investment into the facility is phenomenal. But in my humble opinion, what makes Grand Park go is the people. You've got a lot of dedicated people. And so from an early standpoint, I was able to get exposed to what management looked like. And I can't say that I will ever perfect it, but getting those nuances of figuring out how to work with different people through different situations was imperative to my growth. And I think is what finally allowed me to get to the role in 2022 when I took over as director of the campus to really hit the ground running and lead the staff through the last, now 4 years almost. So it's been a phenomenal adventure, certainly something I'm really proud of, but I know I'm skipping a lot of steps there, but it's been a journey, and I'm really thankful for the mentors that have poured into me throughout that time and the people that have gone out of their way to help me through that process. Because at the end of the day, what I've found is this industry is one that gives back and wants to see the next iteration of people coming through be successful.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So you have what I think is really unique to your position and your specific experiences, that you have seen Grand Park through a lot of changes from its inception. So that's everything from management changes to, I'm sure, structural changes to, I'm sure, marketing changes, to run the gamut, right? So with all of that change and seeing operations and overseeing staff now, what are some of the biggest lessons that you think you've learned through along the way in how to navigate and to lead well through change?
Yeah, I equate, I'm probably way oversimplifying this, but I equate management a lot to coaching. At the end of the day, anyone that's been on a team understands that the coach has a goal at the end of a practice, at the end of a game, at the end of a season that they're reaching to attain. And it's my opinion that each person has their own way, each coach has a way to go about to get that message across and accomplish to each individual person. And so, what I've kind of equated that coaching example to staff now is, how do we work to all work towards this end goal, but have different personalities play a crucial role in getting there. So I think the critical learning piece for me was just how to talk to people and how to work with people in different ways to accomplish the end goal. I think everyone understands that we're all looking to perform whatever event that is at a high level, but the intricacies of each event needing different things and different, you know places to go, or different messages to be sent, was imperative to get across to our team, because I have the luxury of working with people that have been in the industry for 40, 50 years and people that are just starting. And so that message needs to be shared. And the communication, I think, has been vital through that. I can't claim to be the best communicator, but I will certainly do everything I can to communicate with the team, to get the message across and to be as successful as possible. So I really boil it down to the management styles, and it's something I'm always trying to figure out the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I think we all are, right? And if we're not, we're probably not doing a very good job. um, in the chapter that I've written on the about managing youth sport organizations, I talk a lot about the difference between leaders versus managers. How do you see that difference between those two roles on a team?
That's interesting. I'm a firm believer that anyone that wears our brand is a leader, because whether you're picking up loose trash on the side of the sidewalk or leading a whole team, someone that does not know the campus at all will look at that logo and say, "Hey, they know something, and I have a question for them." And so everyone in their own way or own role has the opportunity to be a leader. And so that's a huge task to take on, and so something that certainly we stress to our staff, that at any time that you're on campus, or even wearing the brand off campus, you are going to be asked questions about the venue, and you should either be prepared to answer or know how to point them in the right direction. And so that's what I see as a leader. Firmly believe that even our youngest staff can lead a group to success. Managers, to me, are the ones that are most responsible for guiding that mission and empowering those people to feel like they can answer those questions or get the job done without constant oversight. And so I see that as two crucial roles, but I'm a really firm believer that anyone that wears our brand is a leader.
All right, Matt, so let's transition a little bit into learning more about Grand Park and its facility. For the students that are watching or listening and that don't know about Grand Park, or that are located anywhere in the U.S. that don't know much about Westfield, can you tell us a little bit about the campus? I know you alluded to it a little bit, but can you give us a wider idea of where it's located, what kind of community it's located in, and then even more specifics on the campus itself?
First off, I have to ask why you haven't been yet. You need to come out and take a look. But Grand Park is located in Westfield, Indiana, which is just north of Indianapolis, in Hamilton County, which is the county just north of Marion County. I'd say this about Westfield. Westfield pre Grand Park was a pretty small community. In 2007, it became a city, from a town to a city, and we've had two mayors since. The first mayor had his term through the end of 2023, and he had a vision for creating a place for people to come. At the time, Westfield was primarily a farm community, pretty much a drive-through community, and not much happening. If you know Hamilton County, or if you've done research on Hamilton County, Carmel is one of the most affluent cities in the state, has a awesome arts district, a really bustling business community. Fishers, a neighboring community, is deep into the tech world. and Noblesville is the county chair, and Westfield kind of fills out the 4 primary communities with a few ancillary communities mixed in. That said, when he took office in 2007, he was looking at Westfield as, how do we bring people to the community? How can we create an image or a place where people want to be? And he thought hospitality and tourism was the natural fit. And when he was looking at raw capital for the community, we had a lot of flat ground. Um, Again, not with much of a business community already built in. So he was looking at youth sports as being the industry that he was going to hang his hat on. Initially, it was going to be a 60-acre campus, and the vision for Grant Park continued to grow from there. It was a couple years of planning with different crucial groups and stakeholders to drive the vision for Grant Park. When we broke ground in 2012, the vision was for the 400 acres that we currently have today. And from a political perspective, really put his neck on the line for what he wanted to establish as the driver for the community. The swing vote in, I guess it was 2011 going into 2012, was the premise of stop Grant Park or keep Grant Park, and that was the two sides of the mayoral election. The mayor of Westfield at the time had won the election by 74 or 76 votes, and when you're talking about a close call, that's extremely close. And then Grant Park was able to be created, broke ground in 2012, and opened in 2014. But the main vision for the campus was to create a economic driver for the community. The original vision for the campus was to never create a profit or to make money per se, but it was always to be a break-even campus to drive people to the community. When we first opened, there was only one quote unquote restaurant and one hotel in Westfield adjacent to the facility. That restaurant was a Taco Bell that was doing triple the revenue numbers of any typical Taco Bell. And now I make the joke, but if you drive down State Route 32 near Grant Park, we have jokingly named it Heart Attack Highway because it has name your fast food restaurant, name your restaurant. It's popping up now. And alongside of that, now we have 5 hotel brands adjacent to our facility, with a few more coming. And there's this vision for continued growth around the campus. And we can get into a little bit more about that later. But the vision there was to always bring the raw capital or the raw capital to Westfield via travel sport, because we know that if you're playing the sport, typically there's at least one more person with you, a parent, and then typically now you're seeing a couple more kids or aunts, uncles, grandparents visiting as well. And so we've really capitalized on that ability to utilize the sport to bring people to the community. And so that was the overall vision and why we were created. And the fun part is we're mixing that vacation now into sport, which makes it an excellent kind of ecosystem for development.
Yeah. So remind us, you have 400 acres, and just give us the breakdown again.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. So we have 400 acres of land. We're about 1.5 miles east to west and a half mile north to south. We have 60 fields on site in total. We have 26 baseball or softball diamonds on site. We call them the 26 diamonds, primarily used for baseball and softball. Actually, here soon we'll be playing cricket out there, so that's another fun sport to add to the list. And then on our field sports side, we have 31 outdoor multipurpose fields. So we play soccer, lacrosse, football, ultimate, field hockey, rugby, anything that you can play on a flat surface. We've tried it out there, and our biggest thing is we don't like to say no. So we are going to try the sport before we determine whether it's a good fit or not. And then we have a kind of at the heart of the campus is our 377,000 square foot indoor facility, which houses 3 full soccer fields under roof, which we've now been able to retrofit to not only host sporting events, but also host non-sporting events, things like conventions, major business outings, home and garden shows, farm technology and equipment shows. And so really rounding out the ecosystem of events that we can do. And we've done galas in there. So uh, we've even hosted a concert in there. So we've really tried to be creative with how we utilize that space. But that's within the campus that we have today that is owned by the city of Westfield, now managed by Grand Park Sports Entertainment, and we can get through what that looks like in a little bit. But we also have on the campus, and as a part of the campus ecosystem, three private entities that have really adapted and wanted to be a part of the campus. Um, you would have thought the mayor of Mayor Andy Cook was crazy if he didn't have basketball in the state of Indiana. Well, he knew that we needed to build those other sports, and it would be rounded out by private investment. And that's what happened. There was a private investment group that developed a 8-court basketball and volleyball facility that's just outside of our grounds, but a part of the campus. There's now a gymnastics and free movement facility that's adjacent to it. And then there is a athlete development facility called ProX that sits adjacent to our event center that's privately owned and operated that primarily focuses on baseball, softball, and football training, but also does speed and strength training as well for all sports. So there's this private investment that's been put into the facility that would round out our sport offerings with future growth in mind. And I think as we look at future opportunities, we're not stopping. There's a lot more to come, and I think we can get into that here in a little bit.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Okay, so you are, let me make sure I get this right. You're you are the most visited sport campus. Is that right? Most visited sport campus in the United States?
I did ourselves a disservice, and I think it's because I try and be humble. But yes, we are the most visited sports campus in the U.S. We average about 5.5 million visits to the campus annually, with almost 50% of those visitors coming from outside 100 miles. Our location is so important to our success, being in the Midwest and being a drive away for several major cities. But we do outpace Disney's Wide World of Sports, Lake Point Sports, Blaine, Minnesota's National Sports Center. There are a lot of like facilities, but from a visitation perspective, we do outpace them annually.
Matt, earlier you mentioned about the change in management that Grand Park has seen over the course of its time. And so for the students that don't know or understand the role of the management in a facility or a campus like yours, can you explain what the management was, what it is now, and why the change over the course of time?
Yeah, I think it's imperative to start with the ownership of the facility. And the ownership of the facility has always fallen within the city of Westfield. The vision Mayor Andy Cook had for the facility, it was imperative that the city maintained ownership so that there was always a consistent base of how to oversee the campus. When we look at the start of the campus in 2014, the developer of the campus was the Hankey Development Group, created an entity called Grand Park Sports LLC, which was hired by the city to manage the initial year of the campus. And that was just because there was already institutional knowledge on the ins and outs of the facility. They were managing the closeout of construction. And so in that first year, it was imperative that they managed the opening year. The different stakeholders at the time were all well connected with the Hankey Development Group and Grand Park Sports LLC. So it was just a natural fit. As construction completed and into 2015, the city of Westfield made the decision to take on not only maintain ownership, but also take on the management thereof. And so hired a director for the facility and some staff, including myself, to manage the facility. And that management really ran through the end of the 2024 season with 3 directors. There was a director that's closed out construction and got to build the Grand Park Event Center. And then a director that took on what I'll call the next phase was really building the business. And then I got to ride the coattails of those 2 wonderful guys and got to execute from 22 to end of 24 as the director for the city of Westfield. In 2022, the mayor at the time, Mayor Andy Cook, knew that his final term was coming to a close and he was not going to run again in Westfield. And he wanted to isolate the facility from local politics. So he decided to put out a RFP, request for proposal, for another management firm to take over the campus. It was imperative to him at the time to still maintain ownership of the facility, that that city of Westfield should maintain ownership so that they had end all be all say over what happened with the land and what happened with the facility. But again, to isolate the operations from local government, it was imperative that the operations were shifted to a new management firm. So over the course of about 2 years, the city was going through different proposals to operate the campus, landed on a proposal that was sent in by two entities that came together to create Grand Park Sports Entertainment. Those two entities that joined forces were Bullpen Ventures, who has been a long-term partner of the park and has operated the diamond side of the campus under an entity called Bullpen Tournaments, and Indy Sports Entertainment, which operates the Indy 11 soccer team that plays downtown Indianapolis. Those two entities having the homegrown and a lot of institutional knowledge on the facility and some different thoughts on how they would utilize the campus created Grand Park Sports and Entertainment, and took over operations at the start of this year, 2025. At that time, all of the staff that I was managing and myself were brought over into that entity to maintain operations and keep things going the way that they have been going, and put in some new ideas. But maintain operations was shifted to this now private entity. And what's that done? What that has done over the last, well, now 7 full months is, again, isolate the decisions on a day-to-day basis from local politics. Formerly, not each director, including myself, had to go to city council for certain approvals, had to go to another board called the Redevelopment Commission for different approvals, everything from budget to capital projects to staff hires. We had to go through this rigorous process, and it was city policy. Government entities have to go through certain checks and balances, and it isn't always the most nimble. It isn't always the easiest way of getting things done. We made it work, and I guess I'm biased here, but I thought we were successful in doing so. But it was imperative to shift that over to this private entity that basically got the ability, if they wanted to hire someone, and as we do now, we go through the interview process, we hire someone. We don't have to get it approved. We go through that process. So long as we can show that it's a sound business decision, we can make those decisions. Now, the one caveat that I'll say is, because it is still owned by the city of Westfield, any capital investment, any changes to the facility that are over a certain dollar amount, we still have to go through approvals, naturally so. Just like if you were to rent your apartment, you can't, put a new window in just because you want to put a new window there. You have to go through certain approvals. It's imperative that we get to have the end all be all say of all operation matters now, and without local politics playing a major role.
Yeah, what a benefit. That's a huge benefit. Can we look at the revenue side? Does all of your revenue come from, you guys have millions of customers that come through, millions of visitors that come through every year. Is all of your revenue come from those events? And is it like gate entry, or is it tournament fees? What is the revenue structure?
Yeah, so as a facility, where we stand today is the bulk of that does come from event revenue. And so that breaks down into field rental. It breaks into, we are a state of play facility, so we receive a rebate from every hotel room night that's booked within our blocks. We receive revenue from concessions. We receive revenue from gate entry, parking revenue. Those are the main areas of revenue. We also have a sponsorship line. But where we're going in the future is to really own and operate our own events. And again, this kind of plays into that decision to privatize the business. As a city entity, it was very difficult to own and operate our own events. Now that we're privatized, we're putting in new leagues, new events that we will then be able to monetize, as opposed to just going out to market and saying, hey, rent our fields, we'll give you this rate, and you get to run your event. Now we'll be able to operate our own events and really control those revenue streams, and several other areas that I can divulge into here shortly. But the primary revenue streams current day are field rent, sponsorship, food and beverage, hotels, and gate and parking.
Okay, cool. In our earlier conversation, you mentioned creating a Disney-like experience. And for those of you that maybe, for those of our students that maybe have not done that research on the Disney experience, tell us what you mean by that, and tell us how that transposes into how you train your staff and what you want the experience to be like for your customers.
Yeah, I think in all ways, this sounds a little overpowering. I don't mean it as such, but we want to control your experience from the moment you leave home to the moment you return home and everything in between. So we have again a hotel partner that manages the hotel visitation, and if you have a poor stay, we want to know about it so that we can make it up in another way. Um, we control your field experience. We take a lot of pride in how we manage our fields to ensure that they are the top quality. We cannot control the outcome of the game. It is not our responsibility, but every step of the way, we want to have touch points with the visitors to where they remember their visit to Grand Park. Not for the game that was played. Sure, we hope that there were some excellent plays. We hope that it was a great outcome for you and your team. But at the end of the day, your memory of the venue needs to be stronger than that of the game so that you are a return visitor. And so every step of the way, we want to have a touch point with you, from the cleanliness of the facility, the experience you have when you deal with any of our staff, to your travel to and from. Again, trying to manage your visit from the moment you leave home to the moment you return is important to us. And that's why it's even more so important that, as kind of going back on my last point, that we own and operate our own events. For a lot of events, we don't control the communication with our visitors current day. We don't get to control how schedules are written. We don't get to control how that tournament company treats our guests. And so a lot of our events are phenomenal, and I would never say they do any of those things poorly. But if we have a hiccup in any portions of those stays or any portions of that kind of ecosystem, it's reflected on Grand Park. It's not XYZ tournament company that made the mistake. It's that happened at Grand Park, and we wish that was better. So in owning and operating our own events, we can make up for it if there's any hiccup, and we can then encourage you to come back to that we made right on our side of things. So that visitation is so important, because at the end of the day, that's what drives our business.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's transition a little bit into travel sport in general. Obviously, how many events do you guys have a year?
We have well over 100 events annually.
Okay, yeah. So you see a lot of travel sports come through Grand Park. What are some of the changes that you've witnessed over the last 10 plus years in the travel sport space?
Yeah, I don't want to age myself too much, because I don't think I'm that old. But all that said, when I was growing up in sport, travel sport was your premier athlete. Your best athlete in your school was on travel sport. And what we've experienced, and it's growing the industry, so it's good for the venue. But if you're not quite good enough for that A team, don't worry. We've got a B, C, D, and name your letter, name your color. We've got a team for you, so long as you're willing to pay and participate. We'll have a spot for you. It's not a cut-based system anymore. You will make a team, and we will find a spot for you. So that's growing the industry. I think there's pros and cons to that. I think there's that could be a whole discussion in itself. But that said, the industry is growing. It's not stopping. There are several events that we host that continue to grow in number of teams, to where, a small example here, in 2014, our diamond side of the facility during the months of June and July would run primarily events Friday through Sunday. Think your typical weekend. You arrive on Thursday night, you play Friday morning, you're gone by Sunday afternoon. As of this year, our events on the diamond side of the facility start on a Tuesday and end on a Monday. So you're visiting Grand Park and Westfield for 6-7 nights as a part of your event. And I think that just speaks to the growth of the events industry and the growth of youth travel sport. Sports are very seasonal in nature. So, soccer tends to fall off in June. So you still have those week-long events in June. Lacrosse is pretty set right now in their ways of Friday through Sunday, and we're trying to urge them to continue to build their events to elongate the event. But all that said, it's definitely an industry that is growing, and as we go to different trade shows or different industry events, we continue to hear how more and more facilities are popping up because of the growth and because of the community needs that are tied to that. And I think if I can get off on a little tangent there, it's imperative to be able to manage the community needs within your tournament business as well. So we've had to create an ecosystem by which we can cater to our local teams and our local, not only travel teams, but our local recreational teams, and have space for them during the week and on select weekends, but also managing at the end of the day, the driver is the tournaments, the events that are coming to us for the major events, managing that cycle. And so that's been a fun balance that we've had to work. And again, I don't know that we've perfected it yet, but it's imperative nature to please those local visitors while also appeasing the national visitors as well.
Yeah, that's a great lead in to my next question, which is how has Grand Park's facility, campus, and overall development affected Westfield, the city, specifically in the economic impact? You mentioned earlier that, what was it, Heart Attack Highway or whatever, that you have a lot more restaurants and a lot more hotels. But how has the city benefited from Grand Park's existence?
I think to start off, the local youth recreational and even local youth travel teams have benefited from utilizing a premier destination as their home training site. From a practice and local league game perspective, we've really worked hard to try and find a equal balance where we can accomplish those needs while also the larger goal of also maintaining these large scale events. And again, I'm sure if you were to poll several Westfield residents, that they don't think it's a perfect balance yet. It's a difficult ecosystem to manage, but we do everything in our ability to balance that. But if you were to take a Google Earth image of City of Westfield from 2012 to where we sit today, you would see the growth in the area. And I'm biased, but I attribute all of it to Grand Park. I think naturally, as Hamilton County continues to grow and as a suburb of Indianapolis, there's that push north. But I think a lot of the new build comes from Grand Park. And so, again, I think I mentioned it earlier, but we now have 5 hotels in our community, 4 of which are within a stone's throw of Grand Park. We're looking at adding a 6th that would adjoin to our event center. You're also looking at a lot of different hospitality spots between restaurants and shops that were not here beforehand, and now are looking at our venue and our area of Westfield as a spot to build. And now with this new mayor, Scott Willis, who took over in 24, he had this vision for revitalizing downtown Westfield, and there's a lot of investment going into creating a place where people want to be and want to hang out, and that's reshaping downtown Westfield. So I think a lot of it is attributable to Grand Park. I can't say 100%, but at the end of the day, there's a large drive to Westfield now that I think our residents get to benefit from. I think they have to pick and choose their battles as to when they utilize those areas. But that said, it's Grand Park has been the catalyst for that growth.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of intricacies that go into running something as large as Grand Park. What do you think are a couple things that people don't know, a couple elements of running a facility or sport campus that people don't know about that you could share some insight on?
Yeah, I think this is where I'll put my operational hat on, because those are typically the people in the background that don't get the credit they deserve. And again, we're blessed with a phenomenal team. But that said, there's a lot of work that goes into preparing the facility before anyone sees it. There's a lot of hours both on the front end and back end of every event that's tied to that fan experience that had it not been done, you would recognize it. But since you don't recognize it, we did a good job. So that's field prep. That's getting the not only the fields mowed and painted, but putting benches out, goals out, flag, like just the small things that people just assume happen. That takes time. That takes people to do. We have a really great maintenance team that takes care of every little piece and checks on things at 3, 4 a.m. in the morning before any visitor gets there to ensure that everything's working operationally sound, and so that you don't get that call at 1:30 in the afternoon that there's something happening that shouldn't be happening. The other intricacy that I've become way too familiar with that I never would have thought of is I'm dang near a meteorologist at this point, because we get to manage what weather does to the facility. And we joke, there's a handful of us that joke that we could throw our meteorology hat on and run in the likes of any news anchor to put us hand in hand. But that said, we have to manage what weather implications do to every event. And teams don't like waiting around, whether that be for severe weather or for a significant rain. They don't want to wait around. They want to know when they're going to play. And so we have to put our best guess on sometimes. And so I've become far too familiar with weather. The other piece that, again, as a part of controlling that experience, is parking. Parking, we have 9 parking lots on site. We have 4,500 parking spots in total. But at the end of the day, getting people to where they need to get is imperative to that experience. And so a lot of times we have staff out there managing the route, managing people on where to go. And we have a golf cart system in place to where if elderly or someone injured needs to get to the field, we work with them to get on a golf cart and get to where they need to get. So those are some of the intricacies, things, some of those are, in front of the naked eye, but some of those are behind the scenes that, there's a lot of planning and prep that goes into all these events. And so the fun nature of that is you get to utilize some of the same strategies for event over event, but there's always unique events that creatively bring new opportunities. And so you have to work as a team to figure out the best fit. And sometimes you fail and take your notes, take your lumps, and figure out what's the best way to go about it the next time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So let's circle back now to kind of where we started. Because again, you just have such a great experience or kind of trajectory of your career to really speak into the students that may be watching this. So what is some sort of advice for the students that may be interested in a career similar to yours? What's some advice that you have for them as they are going through their college experience?
I love this question because I get a lot of college students that will do an informational interview that is a part of that class project they have to do. So they reach out to someone in the industry. And I get this question a lot. I love this question because I get to reiterate what some of their professors have already told them, and they get to hear it from a different voice. And one of the largest things I'll say is work on your network. You never know who you're going to run into. You never know what volunteer opportunity will lead into a position. I was fortunate enough that during my internship, I had a more rigorous hour mark than others. My internship required me to have 600 hours of work, where other students that were in my program had to do 400 or even 200. So by way of that, I was around more. I had to do more. But I think, if I, again, humble brag here, if I took a bad attitude to that, I wouldn't be in the position I am today. That was an unpaid internship. I don't know if they offer those anymore, but it was an unpaid internship. I didn't get a dime for working. I actually spent money having to commute, having to buy food, etc. But that made a big difference in who I connected with and how that network grew. So while you're in school, those volunteer opportunities that seem to get passed out, take it up. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know where that introduction will go. The other thing that I wish I would have done or would have pursued on a larger scale is reach out to somebody in the industry that you either aspire to have their role or position or look up to because they have, they have traits that you like. What I've found in this industry is there's a lot of great people that are willing to give you some time and pour into you. And I guess the the con there is maybe they don't answer your email, maybe they don't answer your message, but at the end of the day, if you didn't try, you never would have had that opportunity. And so I always encourage students to reach out to somebody that may be in a position that they like or have qualities or traits that they like, and just see if they can spend 30 minutes with them to pick their brain. Again, I think that initiative to reach out will speak volumes about you as an individual, and lead you in ways that you may never have thought of.
Yeah, I love that. And as a professor that has that exact uh, that exact assignment, I'm like, yes, yes, say it for the people in the back, because that's like literally the speech I give them every time is like, this is why we do it. You know, go make those connections. What's one thing about the sport industry that you wish that you would have known when you were a college student?
Oh man, I think I think the one thing is just I wish I would have known better, and I'm in the middle of it now, but I think I would have loved to have known or would have been taught on how to balance my life a little better. I might get emotional here, but I'm going to try not to. But I am a proud father of three. I'm a proud husband of a beautiful wife, and they love me. They love my time here. But the industry does not allow for that all the time. You have sacrifices, whether it be major events or some of those behind the scenes where you're up late, up late, or staying late, up early. Um, my family has sacrificed in certain areas, and I put a lot of pride in what I do, and I know that I probably don't give my family 100%, and that's hard because um, I committed to being a husband. I committed to being a father, and I know my kids want more time with me. I know my wife wants more time for me, and sometimes I'm getting stretched in different areas, and I can't offer that. So I wish I would have had a better way of educating my family and maybe balancing my life better. Sometimes I put it on myself and I don't have to be at the venue, or don't have to be at that specific event, but I do it anyway because I feel like I should be there. Um, but I wish I would have had that balance a little bit better in mind. What I am fortunate about is my wife went through a similar program in sports administration, so she kind of knew that this was coming. And there's an appreciation there for my hard work, and we're in a situation where fortunately she can stay home and be mom to those kids and be 100%, and we don't have to send them to daycare. But my kids tell me regularly that they miss me, they wish I could be around, and that tugs at your heartstrings a little bit. But I've been committed. The one thing that I will stand firm on, I've been committed to coaching my kids through their sports, and that connection is important to me. And so there are sacrifices now where as they get older, I have to step away from work to be the dad that I need to be. Because at the end of the day, my kids and my family are forever, and my job is a career, and it will come and go. But that's one thing that I certainly I'm probably really long winded here, but certainly something I wish I would have had better insight on how to manage.
Yeah, I think that is so important to remember that those of us that work in sport, sport in and of itself happens when the family is not doing something else. So sport happens at night and on weekends. No matter what level you're at, sport happens on night and weekends. And so when you work in sport, you are working night and weekends plus, right?
Yep.
And so, which can be really, really difficult on a family, on children, on marriages. And so no matter what age or what level you are in working in sport, there's always this assumption that it has to be a family decision for one person to work in sport. So that's great insight. If you could have any of your college students work on specific skills and qualities right now that they can, what would you say that those things are?
Yeah, I think initiative is super important. There's a lot of times where we're working with staff, and I may say, hey, um, we need these signs put up in this area, and I need you to just do it. And I'll give you a map. And when I typically say that, that means like now,
Yeah.
like take the initiative and go. A lot of times in the operational world or in the events world, it's not, we'll do that later. It's we got to go. And so initiative is very important. I'm sure I sound like a broken record, but communication is super important. Managing your ability to communicate your time and when you will do something and how it will get done. If you get an email that's just an FYI, say, hey, thanks, got it. That way your manager, your lead understands that you at least receive that message. So communication, initiative, and I think, you know, maintaining your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. And if you can't, ask for help so that that individual knows, your leader or someone in the industry knows to how to help you get to where you need to be. But those are the main traits. And I think you can do that at any time. I think the last one is you can always manage your attitude. Again, I've had many moments where I don't want to stay late or I don't want to be up early, but it's a part of the job, so I have to do it. Manage your attitude so that when you go into work, people aren't like, wow, I want to stay away from that guy because he's being a total jerk this morning. Like, we're all in it together. Let's have a good attitude about it. And I think those are things you can manage, and don't take a ton of skill.
Mm-hmm. And those are habits that anybody can form at any time. So especially in college, there's a lot of things that students don't particularly want to do, but they can start building that habit of doing those things with a positive attitude. So I love that. Okay, anything, before we get to our rapid fire questions, anything that we missed about Grand Park, your career, or any other topics that we did not hit on that you think we need to?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I'll say about Grand Park is, as a facility, we're not stopping our investment. I mentioned it earlier. There are a lot of different facilities popping up throughout the United States that, you know, we could see as competition. A lot of times we'll get phone calls from those people saying, hey, we want to do something like Grand Park, but maybe not to that scale. At the end of the day, we don't always see it as competition because we see it as a grower of the industry, which is all good for all of us. But it's happening more and more. So we have the ability now to respond to that and reinvest back into the facility. We're not resting on our laurels. We're not resting on, hey, you're the most visited, that's great. We're reinvesting back into the facility to ensure that we are prepared, to take on that next iteration of guests. And so that includes, you know, new surfaces, more LED boards. How do we incorporate technology into the facility? We're developing a sports and technology hub that will allow people to test whether it be new wearables or new technology for sport. So all that kind of builds into this ecosystem of continuing to better ourselves, and reinvest back in the facility. So that's important to note on the facility. From a career perspective, I know we talked about it earlier, but if you're a student that is at all interested in Grand Park or facility management or management in general, and you are hesitant to reach out to me because I already said it, don't be afraid to do so. I'll be sure to pass out my information, or my information will be shared. Don't be afraid to reach out. I have a passion for giving back, and I'm one that you can certainly call on. So I know we talked about it earlier, but I just want to kind of bring it full circle and know that I'm available, and I'll make time to have that conversation if need be.
All right, you ready for these rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Okay, what's your most memorable moment in your career?
Wow, I'd say as a major football fan, one of the most memorable moments was when the Colts first set foot on campus and had our first training camp. And at the end of the day, everyone is people. Everyone is a human. But to brush shoulders with people that you see play on Sundays was a really cool experience, and kind of that full circle moment of, wow, I'm doing it. Like, this is cool to share with my family.
Yeah, that's cool. Kind of in the same vein, what's your greatest success of your career?
Oh, wow. I think so far I had aspirations to be the leader of the organization from an early age, and I'm blessed to be in the position I am today, and I try and be as humble about it as possible. I've worked really hard at it, but at the end of the day, I think that's a major personal accomplishment that I'm really proud of, and wouldn't have been able to do so without the mentors and the staff that has surrounded me. And it's really been a win for all of us, I think, but certainly something I'm proud of.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations. I think students have a tendency to look at all the good, positive things and the accomplishments that professionals are making out in the world, but they tend to not see the failures. So what kind of failures have is there a failure, I should say, that has taught you a lesson?
Yeah, I think one of just on a, it seems minor now, but in the moment, I failed to communicate to a major event that we were removing a path that connected fields from one side of the campus to the other side of the campus. And I failed to communicate it. I owned the mistake on spot. But from that, I realized how big that small little piece of communication was a detriment to that event for the course of the whole event. And so they had to reshift their way of going about that event to move people differently. And what could have been a quick email or a phone call, just making them aware that that small thing blew up. And it made me realize how important it is to just be on top of communication and share everything, even though it seems minor, it's a big deal to someone.
Yeah, great. How has your personal experience in youth sport informed the work that you do?
Yeah, I think more and more now that my kids are getting older and playing sports, it fortunately, well, I guess fortunately or unfortunately, we have not had the opportunity to play at Grand Park yet. I'm in a neighboring community, but when I see parents, when I see kids on our team acting a certain way, or when I can give the speech of, "Hey, we're going to treat everyone with respect, whether we win, lose," umpires or referees, like it's imperative to point out on the personal level. And then when I carry it over to work, it's important to try and de-escalate those situations and being able to speak from experience. Hey, I get it. As a coach, that'd make me mad too. But at the end of the day, they're a human, or those visitors are just kind of living their life as they need. Being able to be on both sides of that has been helpful, so I can help de-escalate some of those issues that may come up at the campus.
Cool. All right, last question. Who is your favorite coach of all time and why?
Wow. I think my head football coach in high school has to be my favorite coach, just because he was so um, he was so set on leaving an impact that was beyond the field. While we had success on the field, he was very tied to ensuring that you were a better man than you were when you came into the program and building into the individual. So he's someone that I always follow and watch his track. He's just this past year won a state championship, and I felt like I was there with him, and that was awesome. But it's someone that I definitely look up to as someone that loved the sport, loved the game, but cared more about the people at the end of the day, and wanted to raise young men versus just young football players.
I love that. I love that. Well, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk
Absolutely.
with me and to speak to students. You are a bright light in the industry, and I'm just so grateful that you would take the time today to talk with us. And we just really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much.